Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Before I begin this video and you'd like to use OCD Recovery's coaching services, please reach out to Phil at ocdrecovery.com and he'll get back to you as quick as he can. So yeah, today guys, I wanted to speak about fear of being alone, how this can manifest across different OCD themes and fears, and how we can deal with it. So please like, please subscribe, comment down below and let us know, or let me know what you think. So fear of being alone, it can come in many different formats. So you might have existential OCD, where you have that feeling of everybody else being a robot and that you're the only living person with a functioning mind. You can feel very internalized in that and feel very disassociated with others, and you sort of get locked in that sensation when it feels very uncomfortable. And yeah, you don't really like the sensation of feeling disconnected, depersonalization, derealization, and everything that comes with that. Then you have ROCD as well, so fear of being left behind, fear of being cheated on by your partner and just being left to your own devices in many ways. And then with the taboo theme, so you know, the harm OCDs, POCDs, HOCDs, the fear of being ousted by society, like the fear of being rejected by, you know, family, friends, maybe people in your town as well, from doing shame attacks and just not being liked, and you know, not having those human connections that we like as a human being. And then also as well, you might fear being alone because you fear experiencing, really living those uncomfortable thoughts, sensations and emotions that might come around from your core fears. And then, you know, you might compulsively distract yourself, and you know, you try and like sort of escape from those feelings in many ways. You know, you might just sleep a lot, or play music compulsively, or chew gum if you've got sensory motor or anything like that. So yeah, there's so many different ways in which it can manifest, right? But we, in order to progress with this fear of being alone and all those other themes, right, we have to try and get comfortable with being alone. We have to try and get comfortable with the sensations and emotions, the thoughts that might arise from being alone. We have to get comfortable with the idea that as a human being, that we don't need relationships like we think we do. Of course they're great, they're a bonus for us, but when you come into the world, you're born alone. Yes, you have a mother looking after you, but you're alone, and then you die alone too. And of course, apart from the first few years when you need a mother to look after you, you know, after that point when you're like a functioning human being, you could spend the rest of your life alone without needing anybody else, right? All you need was food, water, you know, shelter to an extent too. So we got to think about it rationally. You know, fear of being alone is like saying I'm scared of myself. You know, it's almost like I'm not okay the way that I am, and I need these external things to also be happening for me in order to live my life. But as you know, work towards unconditional self-acceptance, and you see yourself as a human being who has worth, and you're valued the way you are, and you begin to sort of accept yourself and be a bit more at peace with yourself, those fears of being alone, they do tend to come down, right? Because when you have that base layer of unconditional self-acceptance, and you know, you break down, you know, connection, maybe a relationship, and you get comfortable with the discomfort that you might be experiencing, there's never really a reason to seek something in the external world, and you get more content with yourself, and you get a little bit less scared of rejection in that regard too, as you start to accept yourself, whether it's your behaviors, whether it's your characteristics, whatever. Not to say that you won't ever be scared of rejection ever again, but it just gives you that solid foundation where you become a little bit more indifferent with either being on your own or being with somebody else. It's like, for me especially, as I've recovered, right, I've had a lot, I've actually enjoyed solitude a lot more than being with other people. I'm not saying that I don't like being with other people, but you kind of see that as you recover and you become a lot more rational, and it's almost like you know too many things, and you compare yourself to society in that regard, which 99.9% are irrational, right? And you see that the perspectives and the beliefs that you hold are just so robust that you don't really, it's almost like you don't really have the capacity to want to deal with other people, because you know just how irrational that they are, and you're just so content in yourself that you actually prefer solitude at times, right? And again, I'm not saying that you don't ever want that, but as you recover, it's almost like you recognize that the rest of society is a bit sick, and you recognize that you don't actually need that as much as you thought you did. And it's funny because I used to have like fears of being lonely, right? I used to get loneliness, with my themes and fears. I'd shut myself off in my room, and I used to find loneliness quite scary, right? And I guess that would sort of show up in different ways. So I remember with like dating and relationships, I'd be very needy, and anytime I was dating someone, I'd be very, blinkers on. It'd be like my mind was set on that, and I had to get it, and I'd have to try and obtain that because I had that fear of loneliness in me, right? Fear of being alone, and of course that just repelled the people that I was dating. So I had to sort of learn that I need to be content and okay with myself here before I can really go down that path and have like solid relationships and friendships. And you find that as with the recovery journey, as you get that base layer of unconditional self-acceptance, you don't really, those loneliness feelings do tend to come down, all right? But of course, you have to expose yourself to that loneliness sensation, all right? It's almost like you have to get comfortable with it, and then you sort of see that it's not so bad. And of course, when you get comfortable with an emotion over time and then work on the belief systems around that, about needing connection, or, being alone is awful, that's when it starts to come down, and those loneliness sensations will start to come up and they start to lift, right? So it's important to remember that, the only reason why we feel lonely is because we don't really have that base level of understanding about what it means when we have these irrational beliefs about relationships and needing connection, whereas in reality we can give ourselves those things. Again, not saying that you don't strive for that, but it's the extremity at which we hold that, all right? And then, so with actual fear of being alone, another way we can look at it, you need to think like, what benefits can I actually get from being alone? There's actually many benefits. If being alone was awful, then everybody who was single would be chronically depressed and anxious, right? But when you're alone, quote unquote, there's so many things you can do. You have more time for yourself. You can live life on your own terms a little bit more. You can maybe go traveling. You can do all those activities that you could do that you couldn't do if you was with somebody else, right? It's like if you spend time alone at home watching the football and having a takeaway, you can just have that freedom to do that because you're alone. If you're like with other people, imagine like, I don't know, you're in a relationship with somebody, right? For a lot of the time, you'll probably get less moments to yourself for that. It's just the reality of it, because you're going to be with your partner, you're going to be doing things that they want to do too. You're going to be maybe seeing their in-laws, and you're going to have less time for yourself, right? And that might mean less time for exercise as well, less time working for you, because you've also got to cater for them, which is absolutely fine. But it's just, it's just the reality of it. So there could be a downside of that as well. If you're single, I especially found like, being, as I've been single, you can be a lot more motivated to do those things that you want to do. So for example, when you go to the gym, I'm not saying people in relationships don't be motivated with the gym, but what can happen is you get into that situation and you get a bit lackluster and lazy. Again, I'm not saying that always happens, but we got to look at the advantages of being single, and that there's definitely advantages that can come from that, from having more time for yourself, right? So again, that helps us to bring it down. And then in terms of the actual fear of being alone, society will have you thinking that being alone is like, you're an outcast, or it's frowned upon, or it's quite unusual, because we're told that you need to have this perfect sunset relationship where you're holding hands and constantly being happy, and anybody else who's alone is a bit strange for not having that. But no, absolutely not. It's perfectly valid and okay to be alone, because it's not impossible to be alone, right? We're human beings, we do have propensity to be alone, right? And it's just the factor of it. Otherwise everybody in the world would be in a relationship, right? But they're not. So we got to think like, if I'm scared of being alone, so like I said there, what advantages can we have from that? What advantages can we take from that? But there's also like behavioural things you can do too to help you sit with that. And there's a lot of shame that comes with the fear of being alone, right? Like I said there, you know, we're almost conditioned by society that you need a relationship to be happy. You need a relationship to be happy, and you can't be happy by yourself. Whereas in reality, that isn't the case. So a good thing you can do, you know, go to a place by yourself, go to another restaurant by yourself. Whether it's good to go out of town and somewhere that you don't typically go to. And I did this about a year ago, right? I went to Edinburgh by myself, and I went out for a meal on my own. And when you're sat there at the table, you can feel the other people looking at you thinking, oh, why is he by himself? And it's almost a good shame attack as well. You can sit with those feelings of shame because other people are thinking, oh, he's a bit strange. Like, has he not got any friends, or has he not got a partner? And it's really, really good for that. And it helps you to see that being alone is okay. And, you know, as well as that sort of shame attack, you can, you expose yourself to those feelings of shame, and you can see that in a way that you can be very liberated and still enjoy your life, even if you are alone. So maybe you're in a relationship and you've got a fear of being alone, you fear your partner leaving you, right? It could be a good exposure to actually do things by yourself and to show yourself that doing this wouldn't be so bad. So even if your relationship did come to an end, or your partner cheated on you or whatever, then you could still actually find happiness even when you're alone. So just be aware about how you can do that too. All right. So yeah, just to recap, it's important that, you know, when it comes to fear of being alone, it's important to realize that it's not this scary thing that we think it is, and it's perfectly okay to quote unquote be alone. You know, having time for yourself, it helps you to learn about yourself. It can help you, like I explained there, to sit with that discomfort. It can give you more time for yourself, and do the things that you want to do. Of course, you can still have that whilst in a relationship. I'm not saying you can't, but, you know, it's about looking at it more rationally, and that we don't need to have this, we don't need to fulfill the ideas that society places on us that, oh, you need a relationship to be happy, or, you know, you can't be alone, because, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, so thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.